True power never shouts, it barely whispers. I'm watching we live in a world that has been deafened by constant flexing. Open your phone, walk down a city street, or sit in a trendy restaurant, and you are assaulted by a visual cacophony. It is a world of look at me. It is a culture that has conflated visibility with value and net worth with self-worth. We are drowning in noise. We are drowning in the desperate, vibrating need for validation. In this modern landscape, silence is no longer just a pause between sound. It has become the ultimate luxury. It is the rarest commodity on earth. Today, we are going to decode the secret language group that understands this implicitly. We often call them old money, but the term is imperfect. It summons images of snobbery, exclusion, and gate. Instead, let's call it quiet power. This is a mindset that separates fleeting, breathless trends from timeless, unshakable class. This isn't a listicle. This is an anthropology of the invisible. It is a guide to the art of being unnoticed by the many, so that you might be deeply recognized by the few who actually matter. Welcome to the quiet. Habit 1, the whispering wardrobe. We begin where the eye begins, the clothing. But to understand the whispering wardrobe, we must first understand what it is reacting against. We are living through the era of logomania. This is a marketing-driven phenomenon, weaponized by global conglomerates, that has convinced the world that price requires proof. It suggests that a garment has no intrinsic value unless it carries a seal of approval visible from 20 feet away. Walk through the first-class lounge of an international airport, or stand in the lobby of a flashy hotel in Miami. You will see a sea of walking billboards. You see t-shirts screaming a designer's name in neon vinyl. You see belt buckles the size of dinner plates. You see handbags covered in a repetitive, dizzying monogram grid. This isn't fashion, this is a transaction. The wearer enters into a contract with the brand. I will pay you an exorbitant amount of money, and in exchange, you will lend me your status. It is a frantic wave for attention, rooted in a deep-seated insecurity. It is the fear that if the world cannot see the label, they will not respect the human being inside the code. And old money operates on a diametrically opposed principle known as stealth wealth. Here the signal of class is not an external scream, it is an internal whisper. It is a secret handshake between those who know, a subtle nod that passes right over the heads of those who do not. The philosophy is simple. You should wear the clothes. The clothes should never wear you. The indicators are microscopic to the uninitiated. It is the specific soft roll of a lapel on a bespoke jacket, a roll that speaks of hours of hand stitching rather than the flat, hard crease of fused glue. It is the matte, buttery finish of leather that has been tanned slowly, over months, using vegetable dyes rather than chrome chemicals. It is the weight and hand feel of vicuna or cashmere. It is the exquisite fluid drape of a silk blouse, one that has seen 20 years of dinner parties, yet remains impeccable. Consider a scenario. You're in a high-end hotel lobby in Aspen or Gstaad. You see two individuals waiting for the elevator. The first individual is wearing the latest ET sneakers. They have a belt with a massive gleaming logo. They are wearing a hoodie that screams its price tag. They look expensive, certainly, but they also look temporary. They look like they are wearing a costume of wealth, auditioning for a role they haven't quite landed. They are shouting, "Look what I can afford." The second individual is wearing a navy coat that is slightly softened with age. They are wearing polished leather Oxfords that have clearly been resoled twice. They are wearing a charcoal sweater with absolutely no identifying mark. They look comfortable. They look inevitable. They are quietly stating, "I know who I am." If you have to squint to see the quality, that is precisely the point. The luxury lies in the feeling of the fabric against the skin, the private knowledge of excellence, not in the envy of the person watching. It is a shift from the external gaze to the internal experience. It is the difference between dressing for an audience and dressing for yourself. Habit 2, the art of deflect. But the visual is only the surface. If you want to truly gauge a person's background, you must close your eyes and listen. There is nothing that betrays a lack of inherited confidence faster than the desperate, breathless need to impress others conversationally. We have all encountered the resume reciter. This is the person who manages to maneuver every single topic back to themselves. You talk about the weather, they mention the weather in the Maldives, where they just vacationed. You talk about traffic, they mention the horsepower of their new car. You talk about business, they quote their quarterly bonus. This is not conversation. This is a press conference. It is a transactional form of communication designed to establish dominance in the social hierarchy. It screams of a hole in the self that needs to be filled with the applause of strangers. It is exhausting. The quiet power approach to conversation is profound because it is rooted in a historical ideal where status was implicit. If you were in the room, you belonged in the room. You didn't need to check credentials. Therefore, discussing one's own achievements was considered deeply vulgar, a sign that you were still striving rather than being. Consequently, the defining characteristic of this habit is an aggressive, almost forensic curiosity about others. They listen significantly more than they talk. They treat conversation like a tennis match where the goal is not to win, but to keep the rally going. They constantly lob the ball back to their partner so they can hit the smash. They understand that silence is not a void to be filled with noise, but a space to be filled with understanding. This manifests most clearly in how they handle compliments. When a person of this background is praised, they rarely accept it at face value or use it as a springboard to boast. Instead, they deflect. They use practiced ease and self-deprecation to level the playing field and put their companion at ease. Let's watch this in action. attention. Pause. Imagine a woman at a charity gala. She is wearing a stunning, blinding pair of sapphire earrings. An admirer approaches and says, "My goodness, those are the most beautiful stones I have ever seen." A nouveau response might be, "Thank you. We actually got them at auction in Hong Kong last year. They are unheated Burmese sapphires, extremely rare. The insurance was a nightmare, but we just had to have them." Notice what happened. She provided an inventory report. She built a wall of money between herself and the admirer. She made the interaction about the object's value. The old money response is a pivot. "Oh, you are kind to say so. They were my great aunts, and honestly, they are terribly heavy. I'm terrified my earlobes might stretch by the end of the night. But tell me, I absolutely love that shade of crimson you are wearing. Is it silk? It catches the light beautifully." Do you see the maneuver? First, she acknowledges the compliment briefly. Second, she downplays the value by complaining about the comfort or attributing the item to family luck rather than personal financial achievement. Third, and most importantly, she immediately shines the spotlight back on the other person. This is a power move wrapped in politeness. It requires immense social confidence to realize that you do not need to prove you are interesting. The goal of conversation in these circles is to make the other person feel interesting. It is a generosity of spirit that signals you have nothing to prove to anyone. It transforms the interaction from a competition into a connection. Wait, habit 3, the buy once philosophy. Now, I can hear the objection forming. It's easy to deflect praise when you own the sapphires. It's easy to be quiet when you're rich. It's a fair point. But let's look at their relationship with the stuff itself, because this is where the insider logic gets counterintuitive. There is a widespread media-fueled misconception that old money implies endless spending and a constant rotation of new things. We imagine closets bursting with items with the tags still on. In reality, many inheritors of generational wealth are incredibly frugal, but they are frugal in a very specific, strategic way. They are allergic to cheapness, but they are equally repelled by waste. The modern aspirational consumer is often trapped in what Terry Pratchett once described as the Boots theory of socio-economic unfairness. They buy mediocre items, use them briefly, discard them when they break or fall out of style, and repeat the cycle. They buy a $50 pair of boots every winter because the cardboard soles rot through. Over 10 years, they spend $500 and still have wet feet. The old money habit is to agonizingly research a purchase, buy the absolute best version of that item they can afford, regardless of the initial sticker shock, and then maintain it for life. They spend $300 on the boots once, they grease them, they re-sole them. 10 years later, they have spent $380. They have dry feet, and they have a pair of boots with a story. This is the territory of the waxed canvas jacket that gets sent back to the factory for repairs every autumn. It is the handmade leather luggage that is polished weekly. It is the good silver that is used for Sunday lunch rather than replaced with stainless steel because it's easy. This attitude stems from a deep respect for the craftsmanship and stewardship. In many ancestral homes, objects are not just things, they are custodians of memories. They are links in a chain. Throwing away a slightly damaged but high-quality item feels almost morally wrong to this mindset. It is a betrayal of the artisan who made it and the ancestors who bought it. This leads to a charming paradox where the wealthiest person in the room might have the most scuffed luggage. To the uninitiated, scuffs on a leather bag might look like a sign of poverty or neglect. Why don't they just buy a new one? The outsider asks. To the initiated, those scuffs are badges of honor. They are the patina of use. They are proof of travels taken, of adventures had, and a life lived without preciousness. They signal that the owner is confident enough to prioritize utility and sentiment over pristine novelty. They repair, they mend, they darn, they do not just replace. A pristine brand new leather bag says you just bought it. A battered, well-oiled leather bag says you have owned it and the lifestyle that goes with it for decades. It suggests that you are the master of your possession, not the other way around. Habit 4. The cultivation of obscure passion. Money buys objects, but the truest indicator of class is how you spend the one thing you can't buy: time. How someone spends their leisure time is a massive tell. In the modern world, leisure has become commodified. It has become a spectator sport. Nouveau riche. Leisure tends to be performative and highly commercialized. It is often about access and exclusion. The VIP section at the nightclub, the courtside seats at the basketball game, the bottle service with the sparklers, or the luxury shopping spree documented on Instagram. These are activities that are expensive, loud, and easily photographable. They are passive forms of consumption designed to be watched by others. Old money leisure, by contrast, is rarely about passive consumption. It is typically active, skill-based, and often requires immense patience and dedication that money cannot speed up. You cannot buy the ability to play a concerto. You cannot write a check to become a master gardener. You cannot bribe your way into being a skilled horseman or a competitive sailor. We see this in hobbies that require solitude and practice. I know a billionaire who spends his weekends restoring restoring antique clocks. He doesn't just collect them, he fixes them. He sits in a workshop for hours, magnifying loupe in his eye, working with gears smaller than grains of rice. We see it in fly fishing, which requires silence, reading the water, and infinite patience. We see it in the study of dead languages, or the hybridization of orchids. Why these specific pursuits? Historically, the landed gentry had the one thing the merchant class did not: time. They did not have 90-hour work weeks crushing spreadsheets or managing factory floors. They had ample time to master difficult, non-monetizable skill. This legacy continues today. When you meet someone who's genuinely passionate about a skill that offers zero financial return, it signals a certain kind of freedom. It shows their life isn't dominated by the hustle. These hobbies are regenerative, not draining. They are pursued in private or in small communities of like-minded enthusiasts, not performed on a stage for applause. It is the difference between buying a ticket to the game and spending 10 years learning to play the sport. The class signal here is the dedication to a craft that offers only the personal enrich the soul. It is the luxury of boredom, refined into art. Humphrey. Habit 5. The curated imperfection of home. Let's step out of the workshop and into the living room. If you walk into a house and it looks exactly like a page from a luxury interior design catalogue, where everything is beige, perfectly symmetrical, devoid of personal items, and smells faintly of new paint and chemical adhesives, you are likely not in an old money home. You are in a very expensive showroom meant to signal current trends. This is the model home aesthetic. While it is clean and expensive, it often lacks soul. It feels like a hotel lobby, designed for transient guests rather than permanent residents. It feels temporary. It feels anxious, as if the owner is terrified of a coaster being out of place. The old money aesthetic, often dubbed shabby chic or English country house style, is characterized by layers of history. It is an acceptance, even a celebration of wear and tear. It is the rejection of the sterile. In these homes, the objects fight with each other slightly. A priceless 18th century oil painting might hang above a sofa that is faded from sunlight and covered in dog hair. A Ming vase might sit next to a stack of paperback novels, and a child's crayon drawing stuck to the wall with tape. The furniture does not all match because it wasn't bought in a single weekend spree with an interior designer. It was inherited, moved from room to room, reupholstered, and lived on. The priority here is comfort and heritage over aesthetic perfection. Nothing matches, yet everything fits. These homes feel organic. They have grown over generations like a living organism. There is a specific scent to these homes that is impossible to bottle, usually a mix of wood smoke, old paper, beeswax, floral arrangements from the garden, and perhaps wet dogs. No luxury candle can replicate it. The signal here is that the occupants are so secure in their taste and their history that they do not need their home to look perfect for guests. A sterile home puts the guest on edge. You are afraid to sit down. A cluttered, slightly worn home filled with good books, soft lighting, and comfortable chairs feels confident. It says, "We live here and we enjoy our life." It invites the guest to sit down, relax, and be part of the family rather than an observer of a display. It values the living of life over the display of life. Say, habit 6, the democracy of manners. But ultimately, you can fake the house. You can buy the scuffed luggage on eBay. You can even restore antique clocks. The one thing you cannot fake, the one thing that will always betray you, is how you treat people. This brings us to the democracy of manners. There is an unfortunate stereotype that old money equals snobbery. We picture the villains in teen movies or caricatures of the rich looking down their noses. While exceptions certainly exist, the true hallmark of generational wealth and high-class upbringing is an almost aggressive politeness, but a specific kind. The nouveau riche or the social climbers often treat manners as a transactional tool. They view etiquette as a weapon to be used upward. They are charming to the CEO, the investor, and the celebrity. They turn on the megawatt smile for the people who can do something for them. But watch what happens when they turn to the waiter, the driver, or the receptionist. The light goes out. They are dismissive, curt, or invisible. This is the height of vulgarity. It reveals a character that values utility over humanity, viewing people as rungs on a ladder rather than fellow human beings. The old money habit follows the concept of noblesse oblige, the idea that privilege entails responsibility. Historically, this meant that the higher your status, the greater your obligation to treat everyone with dignity, regardless of their station. Today, this manifests in the small, invisible courtesy that lubricates social interaction. It is the handwritten thank you note sent promptly after a dinner party, a habit drilled into children of these families from the moment they can hold a pen. It is the rigorous insistence on punctuality, recognizing that keeping someone waiting is a form of arrogance, a theft of their time which can never be repaid. Most importantly, it is the treatment of service staff. A person of true class never, ever belittles a waiter. They learn their names. They make eye contact. They treat them as equals in human dignity. They understand that the person serving the food is just as important as the person eating. If you want to know if someone is truly classy, do not listen to how they speak to the host. Watch how they treat the person checking their coat. If the charm turns off when they aren't facing a peer, it is not class. It is a performance. True class is consistent, democratic, and kind. It is the understanding that your manners are a reflection of your self-respect, not a reflection of the person you are speaking to. It is the habit of making everyone in the room feel like the most important person lesson there. Habit 7, the code of silence. And finally, we arrive at the ultimate taboo, the one thing you must never do. In our current culture, broadcasting one's income has become a spectator sport. We talk about crypto gains, the price of the new car, the cost of the vacation, the square footage of the house. It is part of the hustle culture narrative, where the number on the paycheck is the headline of the person's life. We watch reality shows focused entirely on the price tags of weddings. In old money circles discussing money, how much you have, how much things cost, how much you earn, is considered profoundly distasteful. It is the social equivalent of chewing with your mouth open, except you can't blame it on bad table manners. It's a choice. Why this intense secrecy? Firstly, because to them it is boring. When you have always had money, it is as uninteresting as discussing the oxygen. It is just there. It is a tool, not a topic. It facilitates life, but it is not the substance. To discuss it is to admit that you find it novel, which implies you haven't had it for long. Secondly, and more importantly, it is presumptive. Discussing expensive purchases assumes everyone else in the room can afford the same, which is a form of social clumsiness that risks making others uncomfortable. If you talk about your expensive renovation, you risk alienating the person next to you who might be struggling. To an old money mindset, making a guest feel less than or provoking envy is a mortal sin. The habit here is a practiced vagueness about finances. If someone asks, "How much was that villa you rented in Tuscany?" the answer isn't a number. It is, "Oh, it was a lovely spot. We were very lucky to find it through a friend." If someone asks about the price of a car, the answer is about the engineering or the drive, never the lease payment. The richest people in the room are usually the ones who never mention. They do not need to quantify their existence to validate it. They understand that true luxury is having money, but the ultimate luxury is never having to talk about it. F. Scott Fitzgerald once famously wrote that the very rich are different from you and me. And while he meant that with a degree of cynicism, there is a profound truth to be found in the habits we have decoded today. But let's be honest for a moment. Pause. It is easy to be gracious when you have never worried about rent. It is easy to buy quality when the price tag implies no sacrifice. It is easy to be calm when you have a safety net woven of steel. These habits are not necessarily evidence of moral superiority. They are often just what security looks like when it has had generations to calcify. And make no mistake, the code can be suffocating. The pressure to maintain the estate, the crushing weight of legacy, the fear of letting down the ancestors. It is its own kind of cage. However, there is a beautiful, redeeming truth at the bottom of this secret code. The reason we study these habits is not to mimic the rich, but to learn from the mindset. You do not need an 8-figure inheritance to adopt these habits. Quiet elegance is free. It is a choice. You can choose to buy one good coat instead of 5 cheap ones. You can choose to listen more than you speak. You can choose to cultivate a hobby that feeds your soul rather than your Instagram feed. You can choose to treat the waiter with the same respect you treat your boss. You can choose to define yourself by your character, not your compensation. In a world that is constantly screaming for attention, the most captivating thing you can do is lower your voice, slow down, let your character speak for itself. Because in the end, class isn't about what you own. It's about how you behave when you think no one is watching. It is the luxury of being yourself, unapologetically and quietly. That is the only status symbol that truly matters.